What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about George of the Jungle. A big thanks to Robbie from the Big Rob Theory for being here in another video. It's been quite some time since I've had Robbie here on the channel, but I'm incredibly happy to have him in another video, and we're going to be hearing from him in just a little bit. But as usual, you can find the link to anybody who appears here in my channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you. But for now, let's get into my thoughts on George of the Jungle. Directed by Sam Weisman and starring Brendan Fraser, Leslie Mann, and Thomas Hayden Church, this movie is pretty much a parody, very silly version of the story of Tarzan. You have the monkey man who was raised by apes and now is coming in contact with a group of explorers who come in, and in that group you have a beautiful woman who he ends up falling in love with, you know, Tarzan and Jane. In this case it's not that, but it's the same general idea. The monkey man ends up falling in love with this girl, ends up leaving the jungle and the apes that he was raised around, and ends up, you know, going to the real civilized world, and then is called back to the jungle because the jungle and the people that he loved, the apes that he loved, are in danger. Pretty much the premise of Tarzan, just a much more silly, over-the-top, like live-action cartoon format of that story. Overall, what I can say about this movie, and before I even really get into my thoughts, I do want to really highlight the fact that for me, this movie came out in 1997. I was born in 93. I was a kid when this movie came out. I watched this movie dozens of times. I wore out that VHS tape, and before we had the VHS tape for it, I remember going to Blockbuster and renting this movie on so many occasions. This is a movie that definitely holds a nostalgic place in my heart, but it's definitely one that, going back and revisiting, did not hold up nearly as much as I maybe was gonna hope that it did. I actually did a review for this months back on Interpreting the Stars channel, and I've been meaning to do this review for quite some time, but here we are finally talking about it. And what I can say about the movie genuinely is that it's pretty cringe going back and watching it today. There are some elements about it that, again, are kind of nostalgic for me, so I'm able to enjoy it a little bit more, but I can't imagine people watching this movie for the first time today and really enjoying it in any way, shape, or form. I also just mentioned that it's a live-action cartoon, and it very much is. We also have a narrator throughout the course of the film with very on-the-nose jokes that are constantly telling us what's going on, and a lot of times when this movie is funny, it's usually kind of like a knee slapper, kind of just over the top, so silly that I'm laughing because of how dumb it is, rather than it being actually genuinely funny. Brendan Fraser also, for me, when I was younger, was the perfect casting for this role, and I loved him in the role, but, you know, it didn't really take me long this time around watching it to think, oh my god, his performance is so cringe. One of the things that really works about the Tarzan story is you have Tarzan, you know, who is a man, but he was raised by apes, so, you know, he speaks like an ape, you know, he doesn't actually speak English, and so when he does speak English to, you know, our civilized travelers who are now in the jungle, it's very broken English. It sounds like somebody who's like a Neanderthal, somebody who cannot speak English. And in this movie, you have George doing that the entire time. You have Brendan Fraser doing that voice the entire time, but it just sounds like an American person, a person with an American accent, doing very broken English in a way that just does not work. Now, it's supposed to be silly and over the top. This movie was 110% made for kids. It's a cheesy premise. You can see it on the posters. You can see it on anything that this movie is about, the trailer, everything. So you know what this movie is going into it. But yeah, rewatching it today in 2021, I can definitely say that it's super cringe. I think that Brendan Fraser's performance and the way he was directed to actually speak just didn't work. But beyond that, I think he looks great in the role, and there's so many little great funny moments with him when it comes to his comedic acting, a lot of physical acting, that I think he brings a lot of really fun elements to the role and the movie overall. Beyond that, though, yeah, the movie is not incredibly well directed, and the story just kind of, for me, felt aimless. There are things that happen in the film, and there's definitely, you know, conclusion, a beginning and a middle and end, kind of, but overall it just feels like a lot of things are just kind of happening, and it doesn't really feel like the story has a direction that it's really following or really a plot at all. And like I mentioned, you have this narrator throughout the course of the film, which sometimes just takes out of the storytelling element of it. You know, sometimes it's funny again, but it's always funnier on the really silly, this is so stupid that I'm laughing because of how ridiculous it is kind of level, rather than it being genuinely, legitimately funny. Though there are a couple moments of like very over-the-top meta, self-aware comments that are being made, because the movie does break the fourth wall. It is very self-aware. So yeah, sometimes that kind of stuff is funny in the film, but it's hit or miss. And when it is, again, it kind of is leaning into the territory of it just being so stupid and ridiculous that I'm just laughing at just kind of maybe the nostalgic attachment that I have to this film. Yeah, overall, that's my general thoughts on the movie. I find it to be, you know, a silly live action cartoon with just an aimless narrative with very silly performances. I have more to say on the back end of this review after Robert's bit, but what I can say is I can't imagine anybody enjoying this movie for the first time today without maybe just realizing that it's just this ridiculously, it's so bad, it's good kind of movie at times. I can't really even see kids watching this movie today and thoroughly enjoying it, especially kids who maybe are pretty well versed in cartoons and movies of today. I don't think this movie would really work for a lot of people, and I think it's going to be something that's going to thrive on things like Disney Plus a lot more for people like Robert and I who have a nostalgic attachment to it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hear what the Big Rob Theory had to say about this.
What up, what up? Thank you, Anthony, for having me be part of this collab with you, man. I really appreciate it. It feels good to be back on your channel. So today we're going to be collab reviewing George of the Jungle. So this film came out in 1997, directed by Sam Weisman. I remember loving this film when I was a kid. Upon rewatching it in my days now, it is very interesting to say the least. The humor has definitely gone down a little bit for me with this film, but I do love Brendan Fraser. So, I mean, I still enjoyed it because I loved it when I was a kid. Overall, I would say this is a great film to watch with like a niece and nephew if you don't have any kids, and if you do have kids, obviously with kids. And for its time, it was a great film for the time in 1997. It was a great film for its time. But obviously with the newer movies that we have coming out nowadays, that, you know, it seems like some change compared to that. So overall, like I said, I enjoyed this film when I was younger, and rewatching it, as I said earlier, was a bit rough for me at times. Some of the humor kind of like went over my head a bit. Overall, still a decent film, you know. I would definitely tell people that if you haven't seen it and you did like the old school Disney Channel movies, you should definitely watch it at some point, you know. Again, it is a great family style film. To this day, I would say if my niece or nephew wanted to watch that with me, I would watch it with them, you know, and I would enjoy seeing them enjoy it. But overall, I will not say that this film by any means was fantastic or out of this world, you know. It is a good classic Disney Channel film. The acting at times for me was a little bit wonky, but at the same time, it's what made the film what it was, you know, and it's crazy to see the special effects I should say, from that time to now, see how CGI has developed and how various special effects in movies has developed as well. When Anthony asked me to do this, I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, we'll see. I did enjoy doing this, or rewatching it and recording this review for it, because it kind of brought me back a little bit. There was a bit of a nostalgia feeling when watching it, so it just brought me back to when I first watched it when I was a kid, so that was nice. But sorry that this review is quite short. I didn't have a lot to say about this film other than that it was a bit cheesy for me at times, and I'm a big old cheese ball. I love cheesy, but it was just a little cheesy for me rewatching it. Overall, still a good classic Disney Channel film, but not nowhere near showcases Brendan Fraser's true talent. But he was good in this because he owned it, you know. He is, you know, George of the Jungle. And it is a parody of, like, Tarzan in a way, when you think about it. That's another reason why I think I liked it when I was a kid, and why I still, while watching it now, didn't mind it, because I love Tarzan the film. So that's what kind of made it for me. So thank you guys for sitting through this with me, and thank you, Anthony, for having me on this. Until we meet again, folks.
A big thanks to Robbie for being here in this video. As usual, you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you. And yeah, man, it seems like we're pretty much on the same page here, you know. Like, it was a nice watch to go back and see on a nostalgic level, but a lot of the humor just did not work. The movie is incredibly cheesy, and sometimes to its detriment. I think it's a movie that very much worked for its time, and is one of those movies that just has not aged well. You know, there are just certain movies that were great if you grew up watching it at that time for what it was, because you maybe had, you know, blinders on, you know, maybe you just didn't know any better, and also because there really wasn't all that much better when it comes to this quality of film, you know, something that was very much for kids to just kind of put on in front of them. It very much was in line with a lot of films of that time. And so it does not work on an overall level today. I don't think this is a movie that's phenomenal, great, or even really good, just on a structure of a story level. But beyond that, you know, there's a nostalgic silliness to this movie that I can imagine some will enjoy. I'd be very curious to see somebody show this movie to their kids today and see if they liked it or not. You know, I don't want to say that it absolutely wouldn't be something that kids today would like, but I can't imagine that kids, again, who are pretty well versed in stuff of today as far as TV shows for kids and movies for kids, I can't imagine that those kids would watch this and really be that engaged in the story or the characters or anything that's happening. They may have some laughs at some of the really silly things, but I can't imagine this doing great with kids who are not incredibly young. You know what I mean? So yeah, George of the Jungle, 1997, a very silly live action cartoon kind of movie with a very aimless story that doesn't really have much going on narratively, with some very over the top cringy performances, but yeah, really just doesn't have much to really cling onto as far as the narrative. Going back and revisiting it, and if you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I've been revisiting movies lately for a long time now. Like, I've just been going back and watching movies from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and a lot of them are really cheesy sometimes, and sometimes they work still because of they know what they are and they are at least strong narratively or character-wise, whereas this movie, it knows what it is. I'll give it that. It's very self-aware, it's very over-the-top and cheesy. It knows what it is, but as far as a movie with like a, you know, very engaging narrative, it's just not there. The performances are all over the place. They feel incredibly inconsistent. Some people are giving more believable performances. Some people are giving very live action cartoon performances. And then there's the super live action cartoon performance coming from Brendan Fraser with the very weird dialect and, you know, kind of accent that he's putting on. It just doesn't work for me 100%, especially since the person who raised him, the main ape that raised him, is an incredibly intelligent ape who speaks with an English accent and is, again, incredibly intelligent. He sounds incredibly sophisticated. So if George was raised by this ape and can speak to this ape perfectly fine, why does he speak like a man baby? It's incredibly strange. You know, I think if they would have made him sound a little bit more like an ape man, like a monkey man, like, you know, something a lot more in tune with what the other Tarzan movies had done, I think that it could have worked a little bit better. I will also praise the very catchy theme song that George of the Jungle has. So that's definitely something that nostalgic-wise, I was able to really attach to a lot more rewatching the movie. But as far as the movie, its character, its stories, it's just not all there. One last thing I want to mention before I go is this movie is also pretty sensual at times. You know, there's a lot of moments where they really praise Brendan Fraser's body and his character being pretty sensual in the movie. There's a moment where he's like literally out there just kind of shirtless doing his thing, and Brendan Fraser looks great in this movie. He's all like jacked up, he's got the nice long hair, he's a good looking guy, you know, nice young Brendan Fraser. And there's a moment in the movie where Leslie Mann's character and a group of other women who are kind of like looking at him, they're all gawking and they're like, you know, making some sensual references and comments towards him. There's even also a moment where he's butt naked walking around a hotel room and is just using something to cover his front part. And I think they show his butt in that scene, if I'm not mistaken. And I just was watching and thinking to myself, I don't remember this at all. Like, that was an element of the movie that I did not remember at all. And it was kind of funny to me because I couldn't help but feel like, I don't remember that at all. And it also is just a reminder of really how soft we've gotten with movies today, because that was just on all the time. My parents never had a problem with it. You know, I watched the movie all the time and I was watching Brendan Fraser's butt. He was half naked on screen, pretty much naked on screen. And that would never happen in a movie today. You know, they would never have all these sensual references and stuff like that. Now, it's a lot of jokes and comments that are made in animated stuff, which has been happening for quite some time, or in, you know, kid movies where it's very like something that can go right over the head of kids. But this guy's literally naked on screen in this movie, and they're making pretty on-the-nose sensual comments from time to time. So, yeah, George of the Jungle, a very interesting watch from 1997. I hope you guys should go and check it out after this, just for the sake of a laugh, because it is a ridiculous film, and it's not a great movie, but it's worth watching, I think, at least once. So hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed this video. As usual, you can find the link to anybody who's here in my channel down below in the description box. Robbie's channel is down there. Go ahead and give him some love. Let him know I sent you. Subscribe for more videos if you guys have not already done so. Comment your thoughts. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about George of the Jungle, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.